Alright, so we're gonna make a very simple chicken and beef broth today. So we'll be using some beef bones. These ones have the marrow in it. Those are the ones you want just to make it a little more rich. And then for the chicken, got 1 pound of chicken feet, so that's about 5 or 6 of them, and then a half package of chicken necks. And when I say half package, the package was similar to this size, so I used about a half of that. And that's just going to add a lot more collagen to your broth. And then for the aromatics, I like to use some celery, some garlic, and some shallots. This is what I'm going to use for my pot here. Now, most people tend to use onions. You're more than welcome to. You're wrong, and I'm going to judge you heavily for that, but go ahead, use up your onions. I just really prefer shallots. You don't have to peel too much. Nothing has to be very, you know, you don't have to worry about the minutia because everything here is going to get strained out. Oops. Okay, so just going to lay things down so they're a bit flat here. Now our chicken bits and bobs, this has all been rinsed off already. And when you're rinsing and or washing your chicken, don't use soap, guys. It's I will judge you for that. And I'm just going to get the beef in there. And I like to use the, so it's a bit coarser of a salt. And, you know, just sprinkle whatever your heart feels like. That's how I like to do these things. And just some pepper, nothing very much. I do like my broth to be a little more on the mild side. That way I can just kind of cater it to whatever I'm making as a proper meal. So my chicken soup, I want that to be a little on the lighter side. A beef stew, I want it to be a little more on the thicker side, more maybe with a little more tomato in the base. If I'm just making like a quick egg drop soup, if I'm not feeling very well and I'm not terribly hungry, like the last thing I want is a super flavorful broth that's gonna compete with the egg because it's quite a light taste. You don't want it too strong, so just a little salt and pepper and a little the garlic, shallots, and celery. That will add enough, and thyme, because God knows we can use some more of that. Alright, it's going in the oven at 400 for 1 hour. Okay, so we've got our stuff out of the oven and that's done roasting. And I didn't mention earlier, but no, there is no oil, so no olive oil, no vegetable oil. If I was just making like potatoes and carrots for dinner, roasting those, I would absolutely get some oil in there. But between the chicken feet and the necks in there, this renders a lot of fat out, so oil's kind of redundant. I don't know if you can see that. It's a lot of fat, so oil's not really necessary. And we've got our pot going. We've got a bit of salt in there. It's going to get filled up a little bit more with water, but I just want something to start off the boil. And we're just going to get everything in there and plop her on in. Now, if you are a crock pot person or a pressure cooker person, you are more than welcome to, make your pressure cooker 4 hours, 6 hour broth. I don't know how long it takes because I don't use those. And again, I think you're wrong and I'm going to judge you politely in my head. But by all means, use what you've got. I should have been born in 1403, so I'm going to use a modern day cauldron, aka a stock pot, and this is just stove topping for a couple of days. Okay, so it's starting to boil, and I'm going to sloop all that into the pot, and then I'm going to top this up with water, kind of similar to how one would with rice. So I'm going to go about a knuckle or so higher than where the bits and bobs stop. Okay, so we got most of the fat out. I might try to sloop some of that into the pot as well. But you can see here, now everything is in there. And this says it's about 8 liters, which is 32 cups. And I reckon there's probably about 10 to 12 cups of water and then a couple pounds of things and stuff going on in there. We'll probably get at least a good 8 cups of broth out of this. You can see it's really, really fatty already. Like as soon as I put the stuff in here, it just started looking like this, which is nice. This is what you want. Once this starts coming up to a boil, just going to bring the pot down to a low, maybe a 2. I want it to come down to a simmer now. Alright, and before this comes down to a simmer, I should say as well, so as I said, I just topped up with water just to the point where it covered all of the bones there and the feet and the other bits and bobs. And you do want to make note to not add more water. Because all these things are pretty lightweight, once the water was fully in here, all these things are floating to the top, and that could give you the illusion that you don't have enough water and you might be tempted to add more. I would say stop. If you want to add more water, that's fine. I think you're wrong, and I'm going to politely judge you in my head. But you really don't want to add too much more water. One of the reasons that I quite like making my broth at home is because the stuff that you get at the store is pretty much water in a juice box. The stuff doesn't taste like chicken or beef or much of anything to me. It just tastes like water with a splash more of water. I don't know. The stuff tastes like water. So when I make a broth, by the time this is done, in a couple days from now, this water's going to render down. Some of it's going to evaporate, not render down. And it's going to be meat jello.
What?
Is pretty much what you're looking at. So once this stuff goes into jars, it's going to sit overnight. And the next day, you're going to have a nice fat seal along the top of the mason jar. And then underneath, the broth is going to be meat jello. It's delicious, and it's not the stuff that you get at the grocery store. Alright, so now that we are into a full something between a simmer and a rolling boil, a rolling simmer. We're going to start skimming the scum. Now, if you're using a pressure cooker, maybe a crock pot, I don't even know the difference between the two because I've never owned either. But at this point, you want to start skimming the scum, which you won't have to do maybe if you're using those other devices, but with a stock pot, you're definitely going to see that. So it's hard to explain exactly what that is if you haven't made your own stock or broth at home, but it's mostly just, you know, bits of protein that don't fully incorporate in. They will over time so that you won't notice, but skimming the scum is pretty much going to give you a nice clear broth when it's all done. You're going to get little sediments from protein breaking down, you know, like the skin from the garlic, the little leaves and stuff from the celery, just those little bits of sediment that kind of float to the top with a bit of time here.
I'm a PhD.
And so we're going to skim that. Now, pretty much what I tend to look for is what looks like these bubbles, this foam that kind of clings to stuff in the pot, right? Like here, you can see this is like fatty bubbles and they're rolling around there. But here you get this stagnant kind of foam, and that's the stuff that you kind of just want to skim off. And I'm just going to I'm going to shloop that stuff into the pan for now. And this is what you want to do for like the first hour or so of getting this down to a simmer. So every 15 minutes, about 3 or 4 times while this is simmering, I'm just going to come here and I'm going to just look for that stuff. We're just going to get it out. Because I want a bougie broth.
I'm so fancy.
But I don't think this is necessary. It's just something I read about like a billion years ago. And, you know, I've just been kind of following that blindly without question for years. That's just how I've always done it now. This isn't too bad. This looks pretty clean batch. And do be careful when you're doing this as well. Like obviously you're going to be picking up some of that fat when you do that. And so if I get too much fat, it kind of makes me cry because I don't want to get the fat out, but it's kind of hard to separate the two. Okay. That was not too bad at all. So this is going to simmer for an hour. Every 15 minutes or so, I'm just going to come here and spend a minute or two skimming. And then at the end of that hour, I'm going to get a lid on here. And this is going to simmer for the next couple of days. So I'll see you when I get the lid on.
Lie detector determined that was a lie.
So, just to be clear, if you want the aesthetic of a clear broth, then you want to skim within the first hour. And what you're going to do is while everything's in the pot simmering in that first hour, you're going to check on it every 10 to 15 minutes, so that's 3 or 4 times, and you're just going to skim the scum. And you want to do this with the lid off, that way the scum is more likely to rise to the surface where you can skim it. If you're not arsed about this, that's fine. You're on, and I'm judging, but that's fine. And you can go ahead and just put the lid on and not worry about this. Okay, so that actually went really well. Not a lot of scum to skim, which usually means that all your bones and stuff were pretty darn clean. So that's great. It means less work for me. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the quote-unquote heavy lifting here. All this has to do now is simmer for the next couple of days. So I'm going to get the lid on, and I'm going to leave the lid on for 48 hours.
Tomorrow for sure.
So this has been going overnight, and the color's looking really nice. It's a little bit more golden, and it's really hard to tell on this phone with my cave lighting, but the color is looking a lot nicer. And it is looking quite a bit fattier too. Everything breaking down, and as you can see, well, maybe you can't, I don't know, but the water has reduced down a wee bit. It won't reduce a whole lot because I do keep this lid on the whole time.
Are you sure about that?
But it's the holy lid, so it does vent some. Alright, and I'm going to be going out for the day, and this is just going to sit here and simmer.
24 hours later. 48 hours later.
Alright, so it's been almost 48 hours. Not quite the minimum I'd like to hit, but that's fine. I mean, it's not, and I'm judging myself harshly. However, if you go back to the beginning of the video, this water's reduced a lot. So this is, I'm hoping, going to be really fatty. And it's gotten quite a bit darker in color. It's a lovely rich brown now. So I'm gonna drain all of this. It's done. It's ready to go. And I'm going to drain and strain this into a smaller pot, and that'll fit just fine because not only is the water reduced, but I'm going to take out all the bones and the bits and bobs here. And then once that's been strained into this pot, I am going to further strain it into some mason jars over a cheesecloth. So, I mean, the stuff is still, you know, the feet still kind of look like feet, but we have boiled the ever-loving shit out of everything. So that's great. We're done. And I'm not sure how well you can see the fat in there, but it looks good. So the next time we return, the stuff's gonna be in jars. Alright, so it's the next day, and I had the mason jars in the fridge overnight just to see how they settle when they're done. So yeah, that's what you get when you're done now. The one here on the left is actually a previous batch that I have. I still have a bit left of that. This is from the one that we made in this video, and that yielded me about 5 cups of broth. So we'll probably get at least a good 8 cups of broth out of this broth. So it reduced by more than half. And that's what you get. So my last one, it's a little bit lighter in color, and I reckon part of that is because I did top up with more water. It happens sometimes. It's fine. I was wrong, and I'm judging myself for that. But the first thing I do want to point out here is with my last batch, I didn't skim as well as I ought to have. So that's that beginning portion, going along with the spoon for the first hour to get out any scum off the top of your broth. And I don't know if you can see the bottom there because cave lighting is pretty bad, but you'll see there's like it's kind of cloudy on this one, and it's not on this one. That's what you get when you don't skim the scum. So you get just that cloudy stuff. I mean, it's not gonna kill you. You can eat that pretty safely. And what I also want to try out here is a DQ test. So with this one, because I did top it up with water, it's hard to tell, but it's more liquidy. So I want to see if the one I did this time around, if I can dump it upside down without it spilling. So give me a second. Okay, so the jars are open. Both have a really nice fat seal. Now, I usually just throw in the fat seals, you know, right into my soups and stews when I want to use the broth, but they also come in very handy if you're out of butter or any kind of cooking oil. You can just use that, and that's a really great replacement. Yeah, so this stuff here, I mean, oh, so okay, a bit of a drip, good fat seal. And then let's see the one that I made this time around. And that's, yeah, so nice fat seal. That's the DQ test. Great, so that's the old one. That's the one I just made. That's perfect. And that is all I've got I hope this was maybe helpful or something. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.